Sometimes books are just classics for a reason. This is one of those books. Today we're talking about Watership Down by Richard Adams, and I simultaneously wish that I had read this book sooner, and also am glad that I hadn't. Because this book is legitimately great, but at the same time, I don't know if I personally would have properly appreciated it when I was younger. It's kind of like when I tried to read The Lord of the Rings when I was young, and I literally never finished the trilogy because I just couldn't engage with the books at that age. Now I really want to go back, actually, especially after reading this, I really want to go back and give those another try because I feel like I'm just such a different reader now that I'm older, that I really should probably go back and give those a second chance. But that's not what we're here to talk about, is it? Watership Down is the story of a group of rabbits in their warren. The warren is in danger. It is going to be wiped out. And the rabbits are going to need to leave and find somewhere else that's safe to live. They can't convince the leader, the chief rabbit, to leave. So a small group of them decides to get together and leave on their own. They then set out as a small little group to find a new home to live in. On their way, they will find another warren that doesn't end up being a safe place to go, so they will leave there, and they will ultimately find Watership Down. But then when they get there, it's going to come with its entire host of problems, which they're then going to have to try to solve, which will lead them into direct opposition with a farmer and another warren of rabbits. This book was rejected for publication repeatedly when he tried to get this thing published, and I can see why. Then when it was finally published, it was a runaway success, and it has never been out of print since, and I can see why. So how does that work? How can I read a book and be like, oh yeah, this will never get published, but then if it does get published, everyone's going to love it? Like, it's kind of makes literally no sense, because the book is simultaneously written for everybody and nobody at the same time. For example, it's a book with a universal story that is at once universally appealing to pretty much anyone and everyone who's going to pick it up. And it's the story of the people that are in danger, and they have to run away, and they have to try to find a place to live, and then they have to try to make that place work for them. And just like any other story in any other style, the author has to make a decision, because you have to pick a genre or a way to tell this story. You need a bubble for this to exist in, like a science fiction writer could pick like an alien race, or the world's being destroyed, or we've got to find another planet, or a period piece maybe set back in the day, an invading army, anything. You have to pick a genre, though, for this particular tale to fit in. So what does he pick? Rabbits. The one thing no one gives a shit about or would ever really care about, right? Well, why did he do it? Because it was a story for his kids. That's literally how the story came about. It was a story for his children. And this is a decision that should at once immediately alienate a huge portion of the audience. But somehow I would argue that it actually makes it even more universal, because he didn't pick a weird genre like science fiction or fantasy, which then would immediately alienate a certain portion of people, because, not everybody's a science fiction reader or a fantasy reader. But you know what? Everybody has kids. Well, most everybody. And everybody knows what a rabbit is. So somehow it should be less universal, but I think it's more. But then, like I said, it's a book written for kids, so that should immediately hinder it as far as being read by a large number of people. But the fact that this is in absolutely no way written in a way that is obvious that it's for kids, or that is in any way catering to kids, which then kind of makes it feel like a walking contradiction when you're reading the story. So why is this mixture so special? I would argue that the most important thing in my mind is the fact that the audacity of writing a children's book with adult themes, language, gore, blood was literally brilliant. Trusting the intelligence of your audience, which is essentially younger people to immediately be able to connect with and understand very adult themes and very adult writing. It's simultaneously bold and displays a certain amount of respect for the intelligence of your audience, which in turn shows a good amount of respect for the intelligence of younger people in general, which then immediately elevates the book above that of a typical children's book, because now you're using, with that adult language and that adult theming, you then immediately can also interest adults and at least hold their attention, if not engage with them just as heavily as you would the other group of people that you're trying to get, which is the kids. Then, of course, there's the fact that the whole thing's about rabbits, which, like I said, makes the whole thing just much more universally appealing to a large, broad group of people. It's literally brilliant. Now, do I feel like Richard Adams set out with this genius big brain idea to do all of this in order to make it universally appealing to kids, adults, and everybody? No, I do not. It's a story that he made up for his kids. Then he wrote it down and he got it published and he sold it to the world. The fact that everything kind of came together in this weird, perfect storm that just so happened to be a bestseller and just so happened to take the world by storm and just so I think all of that was ultimately a happy accident. I don't know this for sure. I can't say this for sure, but if I were a betting man, I would say it was all probably a happy accident. Now, with all that being said, I do think that there are some people who will struggle to get through this book, or at the very least, this book is not for everyone, because for the particular story that this book is attempting to tell, I do think that it is a little over long. Then on that same note, Richard is in no particular hurry to get anywhere in this story. Not that he's dilly-dallying, not that he's dragging his feet. He's moving at a nice steady pace, but boy, he's not in a hurry to get to the end of it at all. So if somebody came up to me and was like, you know what, I tried it, I couldn't get into it, it was just too slow, it was just too, nothing was really happening, I would understand why they would say that. This is also why I say that I'm kind of glad that I didn't read it when I was younger, because I just don't know if I would have engaged with this type of storytelling when I was younger, which is kind of hilarious because it's written for that age group. Maybe I would have, I don't know. But like I said, it's not a fast-paced book, that's for sure. Anyway, then on top of everything else, this book is separated into 4 distinct sections, and each section comes with one chapter that is dedicated to this weird, almost like fable, like moral tales that the rabbits will tell to each other. And it's almost like an oral tradition that is passed down from rabbit to rabbit. And they're all about this like mythological rabbit named Elarera or Elarera. However, I think it's Elarera. But like I said, that these weird little mini moral lessons that the rabbits will pass along to each other, and they will have something to do with the story. That will impact the story. They'll impact the characters in the story. They'll impact the reader of the story if you're really kind of listening and paying attention, which you could apply to the rabbits in the story. You could apply to your own life, and they could be removed from this book entirely. There is no need to have them here. The story would be conveyed just fine without them. They are just this extra added beat, and like I said, you get one per book, and I just loved them. The addition of them being in there just enriched the entire story, enriched the experience of the story, and it was another one of those little details that you didn't need, but only worked to make the experience better. And then moving on to the epilogue of this book, I will not spoil it here, but I will say, once you read that epilogue, it is maybe one of the most perfect endings to a story. Just not only what happens in it, that's pretty typical. I kind of saw that coming a mile away, but just the language and the way it's written and some of the phrases that he uses, it was so touching and so beautiful. Chef's kiss. I could not imagine a more perfect epilogue being tacked on to this wonderfully beautiful story. I really enjoyed everything about it, all the way through. I don't know if I'd say it's perfect. I wouldn't give it that. But damn, if this wasn't an absolutely wonderful book, a wonderful reading experience, and I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. I thought this was truly great. As always, everybody, the link for my Patreon's in the description below. The link for my Discord's in the description below. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.